Of course, other genres of music have sad songs, but no other genre of music is so synonymous with sadness the way that emo is. And it's not just sad songs. Sadness, grief, depression, mental health struggles, all of those topics are carved into the foundation of emo. And as a fan of aggressive music pretty much his entire life, no fan of emo or really any other alternative rock subgenre, emo, pop punk, punk rock, hardcore, metal, no fan of those genres is shocked when their favorite band releases an intense song with intense lyrics. It's one of the reasons why we love those genres of music. Grief is an unfortunate universal constant. It's something that we all deal with. It transcends culture, age, and even time. It's the weight in our chest after a loss, it's an ache that doesn't quite fade, and in a lot of ways, emo is a music genre that's born from that pain. Emo itself is short for emotion, for emotional hardcore, and it's the emotion that drives the entire genre. Whether that's heartbreak, anger at wasted potential, trying to find your identity, or just the existential dread of life. And that darkness has made its way into the entire emo aesthetic, from the dark clothes, eyeliner, dark hair, it's all emo 101. Sadness and pain are so associated and so synonymous with emo that in mainstream pop culture, emo just means sad. In this video, I'm going to talk about that unique relationship, the relationship between emo, sadness, and grief. Now, of course, I'll be talking about a lot of heavy topics, so I will do my best to try to keep it as light as possible. And before I go any further, I don't need any comments like, that band's not emo, that band actually is emo, that one over there, that band, that's a pop-punk band. Because for most people in mainstream pop culture, emo, pop-punk, and punk rock are the same thing anyway. And for most people, even more than the music, emo is really just a nostalgic time in their life. When we talk about emo and all the emotion in its music, we can see that relationship start right at the early days of emo. That label was put on bands like Rites of Spring and Embrace during the late 80s hardcore scene in Washington, D.C. The entire reason emo became a thing was because those bands separated themselves with their willingness to be more vulnerable in their music and their lyrics, and that was different than what was happening with the other punk bands at the time. They sang about pain, loneliness, and loss in ways that really hadn't been done before. You can see that in the January 1986 edition of Thrasher magazine, which has the first printed use of the word emo. In that article, the author describes emo shows as, quote, bands are taking the severe intensity of an emotional projection and adding it totally into their respective live sets. Crowds are said to be left in tears from the intensity. This sort of gig is not a frequent affair as bands are fully drained after a performance. Now, it's true that Ian MacKaye of Embrace and then later Minor Threat and Fugazi didn't like the word emo at all. And now that I think about it, Rites of Spring didn't like the word either. But we all consider Rites of Spring the first emo band. I could see how that would be confusing. But if you take that description of emo and really just simplify it, what that author is trying to say is that emo is intense and emotional, and that's the perfect way to describe every wave of emo. I mean, we can look at arguably emo's most popular album, The Black Parade by My Chemical Romance. That entire album is about a patient dying and being greeted by death in the form of the Black Parade. I know. My Chemical Romance isn't emo. Did it feel good to get that out of your system? Look, the Black Parade is so synonymous with emo in the mainstream, in pop culture, it's just something you're gonna have to get over. Now, grief in emo isn't always loud, dramatic, and grand. Sometimes it's those small, sad, everyday moments that accumulate over time. It can be the sadness of a breakup, of a failed relationship, the anxiety of growing up, or just being angry at the world. Those are themes that run through all of emo, and it really showcases the genre's exploration of human emotion. So let's take a look at another album that is synonymous with emo, an album that isn't loud or intense. Let's talk about American Football. American Football is a band that doesn't really sound like any other popular emo bands. They don't sound like My Chemical Romance, and they definitely don't sound like Rites of Spring. American Football combined jazz and math rock to create a slow, methodical expression of love and the passage of time. And all of those topics and themes come together on their song, Never Meant. And here are some lyrics from American Football's Never Meant. Not to be overly dramatic, I just think it's best, because you can't miss what you forget. So let's just pretend everything and anything between you and me was never meant. Sometimes I can't believe that American Football is one of the faces of emo, because no other band sounded like them at the time. They really were pioneers of the entire genre, but that's what makes the entire relationship between emo, sadness, and grief so unique, because it can sound like anything. And it's just pretty cool that this random house is one of the logos for emo. It's also important to note that Polyvinyl, the record label that puts out American Football's music, actually bought the physical American Football house a few years ago, so it's an actual emo landmark that you can visit. Another really interesting example of this relationship between fans and a band's emotional, intense songs is Touche Amore and their album, Stage 4. This album focuses on the death of lead singer Jeremy Bolm's mother, who passed away from cancer. This album is a masterpiece of putting together raw, intense emotion and creating beautiful art out of it. If you've never listened to Touche Amore, and if you've never listened to their album Stage 4, I can't recommend it enough. The first song I recommend you checking out is Flowers and You. This album resonated with fans so much that lead singer Jeremy Bolm basically became a spokesperson for grief, because fans would message him, they would email him about their own experiences with grief and loss. And this would lead to the band's next album being about Jeremy trying to navigate and deal with this new responsibility. Jeremy and Touche Amore dive into this interesting relationship on their song, I'll Be Your Host. I didn't ask to lead this party, I'll explain, I'll flow through your city with my blinders up, it's not what I would have chosen, it's not what I want at all, I'll be your host against my will. And what a powerful message this is. Jeremy goes in, dealing with all the grief of losing a parent, writes this incredibly intense, sad, beautiful album that resonates with so many fans that they, in turn, almost view Jeremy as a symbol and something, and someone they can talk to about their own experiences with grief and loss, and Jeremy initially trying to navigate this unbelievably unique situation, and then on the follow-up album saying, yes, I will be there for you, I will be your host, and hopefully I can help you through this incredibly dark time when maybe I needed someone exactly like me. And just like he talked about on I'll Be Your Host about being this spokesperson, he also talked about this realization of having good days on the song Reminders, with the lyrics, I need reminders of the love I have, I need reminders, good or bad. In that same interview where Jeremy was talking about being a spokesperson for losing your parents and for grief, he also goes on to say that he had the realization that you can have good days with the bad, that sometimes there is light after this incredibly long, dark tunnel of sadness. And the music video for Reminders is one of the best in the entire scene. I highly recommend you check it out. The last example I want to talk about is Propagandi's song, Without Love. I know Propaganda is going to be very upset that I'm talking about them in a video that has emo in the title, but hopefully they're not too upset. I remember listening to this song for the first time and I was blown away and I got emotional. The lyrics on this song are some of the best in the entire history of punk rock. This song is about lead singer Chris Hanna's grandfather and pet cat passing away around the same time. Now, the only way to really get a feel for what this song is about is to read some of the lyrics. All in nature ends in tragedy, and I was the first to finally fade away from my grandfather's memories. Well, how long till the day my memories of him finally fade away? Is breathing just the ticking of an unwinding clock, counting down the days it takes for you to comprehend the sheer magnitude of every single precious breath you've ever wasted? And the lyrics that hit the most, that are just filled with beautiful pain, are these right here. I did everything I could. I bargained with the universe to take my life instead of hers, but no amount of money, drugs, or tears could keep her here. What purpose did her suffering serve? As Crony slipped away, I held her in my arms, reduced to, please don't leave me, what will I do? This cosmic sadness just here to remind you that without love, breathing is just the ticking of an unwinding clock. Those are beautiful lyrics, and again, some of the best writing I've ever seen in all of punk rock history. Sometimes I think we're so focused on the music and the intensity and does this sound punk enough, or does this sound emo enough, or pop punk enough, or metal enough, etc., that sometimes we miss the lyrics and we don't focus on the story that's actually being told. But Propagandi's Without Love, one of the best punk songs of all time. So why do people listen to sad emo songs? I think it goes back to what I said earlier, that all of this darkness that I've talked about this entire video, these are all shared experiences. We're all going to experience pain, sadness, grief, and loss. It sucks, but it's true. And emo throughout its history has been there like a guiding hand helping people through these difficult times. Emo directly addresses sadness and grief, and it's a reminder that even though we have to go through these things, we don't have to go through them alone. Emo in pop culture is sadness. You can see it in the jokes and all the memes, but the emotion that's in emo, that's what makes it unique, and that's what makes it so powerful. And this relationship between emo, its fans, and sadness and grief is not something that fans of the genre shy away from. I mean, how many posts and how many threads are there online about what are your favorite sad emo songs of all time? What are the saddest emo lyrics of all time? Fans of emo or fans of punk rock or pop punk have always felt like outcasts, so it makes sense that those fans would kind of adopt grief and sadness and all of this darkness to their music and to their scene and community, because it's something that no other community or other genre of music wanted to be associated with. And all of this allows people to process those dark moments, those painful moments, and turn it into something positive, and maybe even something beautiful. And at the end of it all, that's the most powerful human ability of all, to be able to express what you're feeling, to be able to express emotion. I hope you enjoyed the video. I always wanted to talk about this interesting relationship, and I hope it wasn't too much of a downer. Please like the video, it really helps me out, really helps the channel out. Please subscribe if you haven't, and thanks for watching.